inside.
So today we've got a returning guest. Annie, welcome back.
Hello.
Do you want to do a little bit of an introduction? I know you've been on before, but had a bit of an issue with the quality of it last
Yeah.
time.
The quality wasn't great.
No.
I think what I said was all right.
Yeah, it was a really good conversation.
Well, we met because of Let Women Speak, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
And the whole reason I got involved with that was because I was researching personality disorders online and I was looking at gaslighting. And came about Kelly J. Keane talking to Dr. Julia Long.
Yeah.
And it was, I think that's who it was. I've looked again. It was a good few years ago, and I don't know if it's still on the channel.
Right. Yeah.
But they were sitting inside a room, and I think Kelly was kind of interviewing Julia, and everything that she was saying, I was like, what? Really? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So then, obviously, I went down this turfy rabbit hole and watched all of Kelly J. Keane's videos and other people. It's like trying to remember off the top of my head.
And then you started going to the events, didn't you, on your own?
Yeah. Well, yeah, once there was one that was reasonable to get to. Though now I
Which
go
one
further.
was your first one?
It was Newcastle.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then you went to Glasgow, didn't you?
I went to Glasgow. And then
So
I
we
went to
didn't know each other.
Edinburgh.
We both went to those events, but didn't know each other.
No, and I kept looking. I kept asking, actually, for sort of northeast, sort of anyone from around Newcastle. I did meet Anna, but she had a dog with her and her husband, and they were just leaving. So that was as far as I got, and that was in Edinburgh. And then when the locals were set up, that's the thing. You need to join the locals, because when the
Yeah.
locals were set up, then I got put into groups with people,
Yeah.
and we had some social occasions, didn't
So
we?
that's where we met for the first time. It was in Newcastle. It was not too long after the election. And I met you for the first time in a social.
Yeah.
And then I met you again the next time on the train going to Let Women Speak Sheffield. Although I don't think you got on the train that I was on. I remember looking and seeing you out the window.
Yeah, I saw you and somebody else, and I was on the next train, because that's how it is. So I just watched you leave and got on the next one. Caught up though, didn't we?
Yeah, we did at Sheffield.
Well, Sheffield was the one that I wasn't going to go to.
Yeah.
Because it was a little bit of a trek. But the thing was, then I was in the groups with people who I knew. So then I had friends, and I was going alone, but once I got there, I already did talk to a lot of people at the previous events. But I thought, well, I've got my friends that I'm in chats with now. And Sheffield was significant to me, and I'd never been there. So I thought I would go. And I didn't know whether I was going to speak or not. And I did speak, but it was kind of a few sentences long and not sort of pre-thought out.
It was very powerful what you said, though.
Well, it was good. It was good to just get there and say what I said. Yeah.
As well, the thing is, I've spoken at quite a few of them now. Quite a few. Like, I don't speak at every single one that I go to, but I found Sheffield was the hardest to speak at because of the protesters and the noise that they were generating. I've got a photo of me speaking, and my face is just like... Because it was just so... You literally had to shout into the microphone, and even then, nobody could hear.
Yeah.
Apart from people at home.
I don't think I wasn't that bothered about them.
Well, you're not.
No, and I've got quite a volume when I want one.
Yeah, they've freaked me out.
I come across as being sort of a little bit sort of quiet and unassuming.
I think I was feeling rebellious. I was like, I'm not going to let them. And in fact, I'm going to go and speak because I don't think anybody else is going to speak because of them. So I'm going to. But obviously when you get up, you can see them. You're like looking right at them. So I try to just focus on the women.
it kind of made me feel a bit more defiant. But what I said was I'd never been to Sheffield before. And the reason I'd never been to Sheffield before was because my abuser came from Sheffield when I was sexually abused as a child. And he came from Sheffield, so it always held a place in my mind that was kind of black and never wanted to go there, a very dark place. But I sent him to prison. Years later, I went to the police about it as an adult. And he was taken to court and he did go to prison, and it wasn't a long enough sentence. But as I was saying these things, the crowd, when I said, oh, my abuser came from Sheffield, the crowd were like, our crowd. Like, and then I said, but it was all right because he went to prison. And then they were like, yeah. So it was kind of, I was more involved in watching the people that I was speaking to. Actually, didn't want to upset anybody either. And it is a positive story. My story is positive now. Didn't tell anybody for about 10 years. But I've done everything that I can do about it. So it is positive. I think it'd still be eating me up if I hadn't have done what I did at the time.
Yeah. I think it's that holding back and not telling anyone.
Yeah, I told somebody I was at college with. Just a friend at college. Yeah, I mean, looking back, I only gauged things off what happened. I had a diary, what happened in there. I knew we had a cat around the time it happened because this person used to come to our house, play with a cat. So I had to kind of assess what age I was, and I don't really know how long it went on for.
You, the cat in the background.
Tim's coming. I'll have to let her out. Semi-feral cat. Managed to get a collar on her, but I think it's a dog collar. It's just one I found in the drawer. And what was I saying?
So you weren't sure what age you were or how long it went on for?
No, and I don't live... So I grew up in Oldham, and that's where it happened. It happened at a church, but he had been relocated from Sheffield, and I'd remembered this. I mean, I was around 9. I remember the details. I remember a lot of details, because you do, don't you, about things like that. He'd been relocated to my town and my church, and they took him in, and he lodged with an old lady, and he did try to take me around there, but I'm not going to go into details. But I did have a lot of details for the police still. And I went into the station where I live. And where I'd grown up was Oldham. So the relevance there being that the police there did have to go to his house, arrest him, question him, and all the rest of it. Because I made a statement up here, and then it did eventually go to court. And it's just, I can't imagine not having done that. I walked into the Crown Court in Manchester, and as soon as I walked through the door, I saw him stood there with his lawyer, solicitor, or whatever they are. And he saw me walk in. But I held the power then. I was able to look at him because I'd put him in this position. And I did feel like I'd taken something back. I didn't imagine for one moment that I would go to Sheffield years and years later and shout about it in the streets and tell the whole world on videos. But it's just how
the
it
internet
is.
didn't exist then, did it?
No, it didn't, no.
So of course you couldn't have imagined it.
Not at all. So this little weasel did plead guilty at last minute, and we were advised to accept it. But I was all ready. To go and stand and tell my story, and I do kind of wish that I'd been able to.
Yeah.
Maybe that was why I still wanted to talk about it. Yeah, you sort of went for a sort of a lesser play, but we were advised to just accept it, which is, it could have maybe got longer, and I do see people who get longer.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing that's really difficult to prove, though, isn't it? Like historic abuse. Where's the evidence that it happened? And like it's that, because of course you need evidence to put someone in prison for something.
Yeah, well, I was told if it was just me, it might not go any further.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also told that I had to tell my family. And because they shouldn't have found out the wrong way. So as it happened, a friend died, and I went down for her funeral at around the same time, so you can imagine how hellish all that was. And I told my family, and it turned out there was somebody else who also made a statement. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gone to court. Had it just been me and historical abuse, it probably wouldn't have. I don't know if it would or not. But I do remember a lot of detail.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I spoke at Let Women Speak, but I'd been to Newcastle, Glasgow, and Edinburgh. I'd never rang into the Turf Talk Tuesday, but I always listened to it.
Yeah.
And I must say, I've never really been involved with anything political. I've always seen that women's rights needed fighting for, but never saw anybody fighting for them in the right way that I could completely get on board with.
Mhm.
And I think it's only with the trans thing in rearing its ugly head that it seems even we're even more at threat. So yeah, happily got involved with all of that, and I suppose I've been able to,
Yeah.
you know.
See, I was involved in women's rights things before this, but it just felt like there wasn't really anything to really fight for. Do you know what I mean? It was like they were talking about like childcare and like working and stuff like that, and I thought, well, that's our biology, so what do you want to do about it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
What can you do about biology? That is how it is.
yeah, it was just sort of equal rights and work, like
And like,
pay and jobs. But I mean, you know, if you are a small employer employing people who might be having children, then that needs to be considered.
of course.
We are different, and that's the whole point
Mhm.
of women's rights is we're not men.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've found that women don't fight, haven't fought for, like feminism. Don't like that word because it feels like um it hasn't included mothers and the fact
No,
that we are mothers. It was all about just being the same as men, and I
yeah,
didn't like that about it.
yeah. Where it's ideal if you don't have to work when your children are young
Uh-huh.
and things like that. And it's
Yeah, but
or a man could do the same. You know,
this
it's a
is the thing,
couple's.
though. I think this is the next fight. Well, there's more. There's others as well, but that's, I think, because when you say anything like that on LinkedIn, people are horrified. So we've been kind of like societies accept it. Women should just go to work and leave their children with other people to bring up,
Yeah, it's a lot
and
of
that's
that,
not
isn't
good
there?
for children or for
No,
mothers.
no. Well, somebody I know is on the verge of having to go back to work and assessing the situation because she's wondering whether to work part time. But she does say that the money that she would get for paying for a nursery, she could take that money instead. So that's changed since my children were young, and she needs to find out about that. And I couldn't speak on it here clearly because I'm not quite sure about all that yet. But
Yeah,
that is some provision because the last thing you want to do, well, my son was 9 weeks old when I had to go back and work in a factory, so I
yeah,
didn't,
hmm,
and we managed.
yeah,
Um, I had to be quite frugal, and we just managed.
yeah.
There was no way I was leaving a tiny baby to go back to work. It's not normal, really, is it? It's not
But it's been
natural.
normalised.
Yes, it has. So it's like a full circle, isn't it? Because my
Yeah.
mum worked, but she worked part-time, and she went back to work when I went to school,
Hmm.
when I started school. So she did have those few years. It's just a few years. It's not the whole of your children growing up,
Hmm.
is it? It's just the most informative, important years that it would be
Yeah.
nice for
But even
women be able to do it.
even when they get to school age, it's tricky because, they're at school for less time in the day than the average work day.
Yeah,
They're there for less weeks of the year than you get annual leave for. And if they're ill, it's really difficult to juggle that as well.
yeah. You need
And
a third party, don't you? You need somebody else. Not
yeah,
everybody's got
if you,
someone else.
yeah. So when my children were little, I pretty much brought them up on my own, didn't have any family help. And when they
I
were
didn't.
ill, it was really difficult. Like some of the time that I was working, I just had to take time off and I didn't get paid. And then other different jobs had different conditions and I was expected to be there.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't, then it was, I can't even remember what I did because it wasn't my sickness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what happened. But I
I
remember it
worked at
being
night.
hard and being torn. I didn't have anybody to look after them at night. I only had when they were at school and before and after school clubs. So,
You
and
know,
then
I
in the
worked
school
when they
holidays as well.
slept. I
Yeah.
mean, I worked at home,
Mhm.
so I worked at night because
Yeah.
in the daytime I couldn't get anything done.
Yeah.
I
And
worked around them. All the time
yeah,
I worked around them.
I think that's possibly a good compromise, like a good way of doing it.
Yeah,
It didn't cross my mind to be self-employed back then. I wouldn't have known what I could do.
because you can catch up with things at night. You
Yeah.
can.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting subject, and I think people just assume that that's what they have to do, and they don't. I get the impression that lots of women just don't even consider not going back.
Right. Yeah. Not saying that they have to because some might not want
Yeah.
to be at home. It doesn't suit some people, but there should be options. The
Yeah.
options should be a bit like,
Yeah.
we
I think really the focus should be on supporting families
yeah.
rather than supporting the employment, and encouraging
When my
um
children were growing up,
yeah,
I think
leave them at nursery.
yeah, yeah. Because I always thought that if they were in a nursery, I know some nursery workers are probably really, I don't know, what's the word? I can't think of the word.
Competent,
It's
caring.
not just competent, they actually care about what they're
Yeah.
doing, but other nursery people,
Mhm.
staff, will just want the job done.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're looking after your own children, you care whether they turn out to be good children and you care whether they behave
Yeah.
rather than you just need them to,
Mhm.
sort of thing. And also, when my children were young, a lot of women went for the jobs in schools or jobs in supermarkets that ran around school time. Now, all those jobs in supermarkets are getting, well, they're getting automated, aren't they? They're being
Yeah.
automated away. I mean, your average job, your average minimum wage job that you
Yeah.
could get that would work around a family, they're disappearing.
Yeah. I couldn't find a job that fitted around me children. It was really difficult. Um.
Don't know how we got onto that.
Yeah, we kind of went off on a tangent. So anyhow, so we were talking about Let Women Speak, weren't we? And you've been to quite a lot, and
Yeah, and
you
yeah,
talked at Sheffield, and I know that you recently talked when we went to London at the police outside of New Scotland Yard. Do
yeah.
you want to, have you talked at any other Let Women Speak
No,
events other than
those are the
that?
only two. I mean, yeah, didn't feel the need to. I've always gone along, and there's been people with a lot of detailed information and a lot of important stuff to talk about. My
Yeah,
things that I have to talk about, I don't have any experience of sort of trans issues or anything like that. I'm just there. I'm listening, and I'm on side with
yeah,
what's going on.
yeah. There's
Um,
something about the atmosphere and meeting other women, and
yeah, and being able to loosen your tongue and say what you like, and know that you'll be okay,
yeah,
more or less.
yeah.
Um, I
What
know,
made you
just
want to speak at the police event?
they're just liberating, aren't they? Well, if you
Yeah,
go by what happened to me in Oldham, sort of 10 years later, when I was still living in Oldham, I was walking home. This is what I spoke about at London at the Let Women Speak police. I was walking, and I never reported this. Walking home on my own, maybe after a pub or a nightclub, I'd walk home with a friend, but I would end up having to walk the last bit on my own. Now, there was a main road from Manchester to Oldham, and on one side, it was predominantly people like me. And on the other side, it was predominantly Pakistani families. And there's no two ways about it. And I'm not saying that they're all bad, but that's how it was because people will be in a community. So I didn't used to walk down that road on the way home late at night on my own, but this one night, for some reason, I did. And I was aware of a culture, a difference in the cultures already. I'd stood at bus stops and been stared at and undressed with his eyes by a middle-aged man. Just consistently stared at me for about 5 minutes at least. And I was made to feel really uncomfortable. And I was obviously already aware about what men were capable of because of what had happened to me previously. So I was pretty clued up as to what could happen-ish. So I'm walking down the road with stuck out hair and loads of makeup. I think I had a really tight skirt on and sort of fishnet tights, and I definitely had high heels on. And a car came past slowly right next to the pavement. So I looked round and there was men in it, and there was at least 5 men, and they were probably Pakistani men. They weren't white British men. And there must have been more than 2 in the back, 2 in the front, so there must have been at least 5 of them. And they all stared out of the window at me when I looked. Anyway, they went a bit further down the road. So this car there was a bit of a joke at the time about them driving Datsuns. It was a Datsun. I think it was a brown Datsun. And I don't think it could go very fast. Now I'm putting more and more together the more I think about it. Anyway, they drove past and further down the road. Now I had a park behind me, their area on the other side of the road and my area on my side of the road. But to get to where I needed to be, to any houses, it was about 100 metres of stone walls. There was an old folks' home on one side and a park on the other side. And I saw the car go to turn round after it had gone past. And I just, instinct sort of flight just kicked in. And I I must have had an adrenaline rush, and I just ran as fast as I could. I couldn't chance going a little bit further till there was 2 bungalows. I had to go in the first hole, the first gateway. So it was just an old folks' home, and it was night, it was dark, all the lights were off. There was a big tree, but I thought, well, if they do drive in this gateway, if they've seen me go in this gateway, they'll see me. So I went a bit further in and I hid behind a big bush. The car came up the street after me, slowly, and I could hear them come up the street, and then they went past. And as soon as they got sort of out of earshot, I came out and went home a different way, and I hid behind cars and things. And you know what? I never told anybody. I never reported it, and I didn't tell anybody. And part of the reason for not telling anybody is with my mum, I'd have been in trouble.
Yeah.
It's okay for 5 grown men to curb crawl an 18-year-old girl who's on her own. Because of the culture differences, I thought the way I was dressed, did they think I'm a lady of the night? That was part of the reason that I ran. Because the way I was dressed was quite outrageous, and I just thought they'd think the wrong thing and get the wrong idea. Yeah, it was less that I thought that I could have been physically attacked by them all or sexually attacked by them all. It was less that. It was just more the unknown, the fear of unknown, and, being there on my own.
Yeah.
I don't know why I ran. I'm so glad I ran. I don't know what would have happened. But so the reason I spoke about this at London, Let Women Speak Police, was because had I done something about it, had I reported it, would anything have happened?
Yeah. Possibly not.
Nowadays, you'd be able to swipe your phone out and take a photo of the car, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
If you were quick thinking enough. And can I just say, on a lot of phones, if you press the on off, not the volume, that one, press it twice, you might get your camera on immediately.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do all the time. It goes straight to camera. You don't have to unlock your phone and all the rest of it. And you can take a picture if you're in a situation where you need to take a picture quickly. So it just came back to me with all everybody calling for these investigations now about the grooming gangs in that area. I wasn't aware. This was 40 years ago. and they're talking about historical events. I don't know if they're going back 40 years. I don't think it was common knowledge about the culture differences, and I think girls knew. Well, I certainly did. I had friends who were Pakistanis, but I would never have dated them because what's the point when they're going to have an arranged marriage? You know, it, I did have friends, you know, my mum once asked me if I was going out with one of them, but it was just a friend. It wasn't anything to do with that. It was just some of the culture.
Do you think he knew he was a friend?
Yes, he did.
Just I'm
You know-
thinking about some of my friends
Oh, right.
back when I was younger, and when I think back now, I'm just like, yeah, he didn't want to be a friend. But in my
Yeah.
head, they were friends, and that was all
Yeah.
I was looking for. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't anything else, but they definitely thought of it differently. When I think back of, you know, all the details of what happened and stuff,
I do say to my daughter that it's impossible to have a best friend who's a man.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah, or even a good friend who's a man, you know.
I think
But
it's possible for us, but not for them.
yeah, there was a big group of us. And he did scoop a dead cat out of the middle of the road for me once because I was so upset and cars kept coming and hitting it. And I was like, no, you need to move it. So that's the memory I have of him. I also have a memory of him being hit and having a bloody nose, and I took him in my house.
Sorry, who's that?
This friend of mine
Oh, right,
that was,
okay.
he was called Javid. He was really trendy, actually. But he was just a friend. But somebody had punched him because of the colour of his skin. And I took him in my house and cleaned him up and gave him a drink and things. And I'm not trying to prove that I'm not racist. It's just, you know, he was part of our culture, really. He was dead trendy. He was like our age. He hung around with all me and my friends, and wasn't an issue.
It's ridiculous that we feel like we have
Justify
to
it.
justify it,
Yeah.
because actually it's just facts, isn't it? It's your
Yeah.
experience. It doesn't make you racist because you've explained a situation.
No.
People
it was-
people from different cultures have different cultures.
Yeah. I had a friend, actually, who lived in that area. And she used to get a lot of racist abuse. She was my best friend. She was the one that died. She was my best friend, and she was half West Indian, but she didn't have curly hair, and she looked like one of the Pakistanis. So she used to get racially abused. She was my best friend, so I was well aware of it. She lived in that area.
Yeah. I don't think when I grew, like, there wasn't as many people from different cultures where I grew up, but I can't really remember any racism. Like, people used to call the people at the corner shop a Paki and stuff like that, but not in my circles. There wasn't really any racism. I was aware that in some places it was a little bit more, there probably was a bit more racism with certain people, but I don't think it was a culture of it.
No, she used to get quite a bit. They didn't mix. We didn't mix, really. But this one guy did. He used to hang around with us, so that was fair enough.
Yeah.
Just took him how he was. Yeah, where I grew up, I think my school, there was like a couple of sort of ethnics in each class. Whereas now there's complete
lot more.
segregated schools.
Yeah, when I grew up, there was like, well, when I was very little, I remember there was I think they were twins, and they were Chinese. I can't remember anyone else. And then I moved schools when I was about 7. I can't remember anybody in my primary school. But when I went to high school, there was so there was a family who ran an Indian restaurant, and there was another family. They were like the only black family in colour coats. I remember once, because we were all really very careful not to be racist or anything or say anything that might offend them, and then this one day she just came in and went, "Oh, I've been sunbathing, I want to get a tan." And we just all burst out laughing. It was funny because we wouldn't have been able to say that, but it was okay for her to say it.
And that's it, isn't it? If they're running businesses. I mean, we have a really good Indian where I live, and they were very well thought of in
Mhm.
the community
Absolutely.
by the majority, but, you don't want them to be targets of anything.
And then we had some Italian families as well who are still in Cullercoat running the ice cream
Yeah,
the ice cream sellers and
yeah,
stuff like that. But yeah, there wasn't loads, and I don't think there is even now. It's still quite majority white where I live.
yeah. It is where I am now. It was like a time warp with moving here from Oldham. It was
Mhm.
completely different. I just wonder who those 5 men were and what they went on to do and what they were part of, if they were or not, and have they ever been prosecuted, or are they still outlying, or are they still around? But, 40 years is a long time, isn't it, for them to, which is another reason why when someone's abusing children, I think you can handle it in different ways, and a lot of people don't do anything about it. But what you've got to think about is, in the meantime, what are they doing?
Yeah.
So when I did something about that, warnings were out. This person couldn't work with any children anymore.
Mhm.
Everybody had heard, everybody knew. Well, they
Mhm.
knew about the allegation, but they just didn't believe it.
Yeah.
People in the church were at the court with his wife,
That's a
backing him.
I was gonna say, I think that's quite a common reaction within
Yeah, it's
families as well. It's like
people.
denial
Yeah, I think they just can't get their head round that. They can't imagine the person doing
because
things
it's
like
so
that.
horrific.
Yeah,
The thought of that happening, it's so horrific that they can't
yeah.
countenance it. They just can't accept it.
Including my guide leader,
Mm.
who I tried to say hello to, but
And it makes you feel like it's kind of like personal, or they don't believe me.
But I know. There was a jury there ready. Just didn't go that far.
Hmm. So did you find the whole process quite stressful or at the time?
Probably it was stressful. I don't remember. I was quite defiant at that point. I'd kept it quiet for 10 years and I was doing something about it. And actually, I was in a bad relationship. I was trying to sort my whole life out, really, and thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the problem why I'm not happy. So I did it. It would have been positive stress, I think,
Mhm.
if I felt stressed. Just the stress of,
Yeah,
having to go through with it all. But walking in them doors and seeing him stood there was good.
yeah, that's good.
Oh, and the courtroom was all old wood panelling, and has
Yeah,
probably been the same courtroom on various dramas like Coronation Street, with it being Manchester Crown Court. So the entrance was very modern, but the actual courtroom was old fashioned. And at the end, the judge said, "Take him down." And he went down the steps, which was pretty good.
just like in the films and the.
Yeah,
Mm,
that was
yeah,
good.
yeah. Lots of women just don't get justice, though, do they?
No. And I know there were other people.
Mm.
I know there were other people who didn't say anything because he'd told me.
He
So I
told you
was,
that he'd done it before.
yeah, he told me he'd done something to somebody else. And, well, he was involved with their family more so. So they weren't prepared to do it.
It is a big thing to do.
It's a big thing to do if he's married to your mother,
Right.
if your mother's been widowed, and then he moves in and marries her. That was a situation. So there was a boy and a girl, and then he had one of his own, and she doesn't want to be a girl. And the son, his stepson, approached us in the court and said, "I know you're not lying. Well done. I'm glad you got
Crikey.
your result."
Mm.
But, and there will have been more. There will have been more, and it was in papers and things at the time, and I really did hope that there would have been more people come forward, because there will have been more,
Yeah.
and he would have got longer.
So in terms of Let Women Speak, I know we've got some more events planned, haven't we?
Yeah.
to change the subject a bit.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, the last one we went to was in London, and it was the weekend
It
of
was 2
having
events in one.
the police one and then the reformers tree the
Yeah.
day after. And then we went to Speaker's Corner, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I found it quite exhilarating. And I think the bigger the crowd of women we get there, the better.
Yeah, I've seen people saying I've never been before, but I'm going this time, so I think the June one will be quite big.
Yeah. Well, there's messages that need to be spoken
Yeah.
there, read out from women who can't do it themselves, which is the least we can do, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But when Kelly stood and said, "We are an organisation called Let Women Speak," or however she introduced it, there was a man behind me who said, "You always speak," just like that. And I thought, I wasn't thinking really what I was doing. And I think I turned around and said, "Yes, we do."
But not every woman does, though, and not the important
No,
things that we need to say. Mm.
I'm so not bothered by them. I'm not intimidated. I'm not frightened about things. And I think it's probably because I know what fear is, being a child and no one saving you and having to save yourself, because I saved myself. My abuse stopped because I told him to,
Yeah.
and I said I didn't like it anymore. And that because I'd realised that it was wrong, and that's why it stopped. And running up a street like with a car with 5 men in behind you,
Uh-huh.
that's fear. So talking somewhere, there's nothing to be frightened about, really,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. So I'm like really busy with work, but I'm going to try my best to get there. I think I will definitely be coming at the end of the month
Uh-huh.
to the Speaker's Corner event and the Reformers Tree. And we're having a picnic as well, aren't we?
Yeah. And then there's Glasgow as well in August.
Yeah, and we have friends there.
Yeah.
You have
And then
friends all over, because each one that I've been to, I've just spoken to people who are around me. And then you
yeah.
go to the next one and you see them people, and then you speak to some more. And you just end up like,
And you see the same people again and again,
yeah,
don't you?
knowing them all, but not knowing what they're, who they are on
Which one's
Twitter and
which?
online and things.
Mixing up which one's which and who's who and
It's like,
what the
oh, is
names
that
are.
you?
I know I remember when I went to Leeds, Let Women Speak, and we'd met quite a few women from Leeds, and we're like, oh, how will we do this? And one of the women was like, oh, come to my house, you can park there and we'll go together. So we did, and it turned out that Mr. Menno was staying at hers as well. So we turned up, there was Mr. Menno and then Tamsin, and she came out the house, we're like, oh, it's you! Because obviously we'd met her before, but we didn't know which one's house we were going to till we got there.
Right. No. Yeah. Yeah, I met Menno in Glasgow.
Yeah, I
I
met
think
him there as
Glasgow was
well.
the best because there was that whole thing with there was the Labour MPs the week before who had held up signs saying decapitate TERFs. And then there was Isla Bryson, was it?
Yeah.
Outside the court with his pink leggings on with a bulge in. That had happened as well the week before, hadn't it?
Uh-huh.
So that was all the run-ups, and then we had the Let Women Speak, and then the week after, Nicola Sturgeon departed her position.
Mm-hmm.
And we did feel like we'd had an effect. It was kind of
Well,
untenable,
yeah,
wasn't it?
I do think that was a result of pressure, and that was partly because of the women who spoke at that event.
There was the alleged money issues as well, but they've never got to the bottom of that, have they?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really follow. I only follow certain things in politics, really.
Oh, she's still around.
Yeah. Do you think that the turf movement, for want of a better way of putting it, is going to continue for much longer? Because we've had this Supreme Court judgment, and it does seem to feel like more women can speak, and there's less of an urgency to speak out and fight, if that makes sense.
Well, I didn't actually particularly celebrate that.
Yeah, it didn't. I didn't think it was going to make any difference whatsoever, but I actually do think it has. I think I was wrong, just because I
Yeah.
think more women are confident to say no.
Well, yeah. You're more able to say the things, and if things come up, then you're more able to say you're in the wrong
Yes, and it's partly because it's been on
legally.
mainstream TV now. They couldn't
Yeah,
ignore that.
no, but they're
But
still trying to
I mean, the
not do
most
it.
lively place is LinkedIn. From my point of view, it's LinkedIn because it's all of the activists who are in like DEI. They're all like resistant to take it on board. So we have some lively debates on there. So the trans activists aren't willing to back down. So they're saying, oh, well, I'm a trans woman and I'm still going to use the toilets, the women's toilets and stuff. We're not going to change our policy. So they're openly admitting to breaking the law, not
Yeah, and
going
there's
along.
people.
So
I've seen things on Facebook events where people are trying to wangle toilet labels. It's not just about toilets, but that is crucial.
it's the rape crisis centres that really upset me. Like, just after it happened, our local rape crisis centre posted on LinkedIn to say, business as usual, trans women are women, whatever they said, it was all, and I was like, straight in there, because it was the first, I knew that it was happening, but it was the first time that I'd seen them say it.
Right.
And I was like, you let men into rape crisis centres for women and girls. And it caused quite a bit of a stir. Like,
Good.
there was a bit of a pile on. But nobody was rude. It was all very polite and, you can't, this is wrong. And basically our response was, oh, well, we know what we're doing. We are the experts. We know how to handle these situations. Basically, shut up. You don't need to get involved, kind of thing. And she turned off the commenting. And then the next day she posted again, basically saying that she was still in the same position, that she knew that she was right, and but you don't need to be rude to all our staff because, poor staff, we are real people, And nobody was rude, but it was clearly written by AI. Anyway, there was no comments allowed on that post. And then, so I was like, I can't leave this. So I wanted to message her to follow up, and she'd removed me as a connection, so I couldn't send her a message. And then, so I was tagging her into posts, and she blocked me. And then she was in the Telegraph, and at that point she'd changed her tune a little bit, and she was saying that, give us a chance to look into it, kind of thing. Because, until 5 minutes ago, trans women are women, and now you're saying they're not.
Oh,
And
it's
I'm
ridiculous.
just like,
It's just ridiculous.
so that's concerning, but I think that I've seen that other women are doing stuff about that, because I was going to follow up, but I'm not sure that I will. I'm just going to keep an eye on it. But it's hard
Yeah.
to keep an eye on it when you've been blocked.
Well, exactly.
I wasn't even rude. I was very polite. She just didn't like what I had to say.
I go to some places on the internet and see stuff, but bite my tongue so that I can carry on
Watching.
seeing it. Yeah. I am observing people at the moment, some people, to do with events and things that are going to be happening where they're going to label the toilets ridiculously and things like that.
Well, it's discrimination against women, isn't it?
Well, it is, isn't it? Why can't men who wear dresses go in men's toilets?
Oh, well, they might get beaten up. That's the argument, isn't it?
Well, living in the northeast, you'd think they'd get beat up in the ladies, wouldn't you? I mean, we're not all be kind, are we?
No.
I'm joking.
No, but that's the thing, though. Women aren't really strong enough to beat up men.
Most of them, no. But yeah, men will be really uncomfortable if men in dresses go in men's toilets. The other men will be really uncomfortable.
But that's not women's problem. That's their
Just like
problem.
women are.
But they decided to do that to themselves. So,
What do you think that the reaction of men would be?
sorry, I can hear a buzzing. I think there's a wasp in my office. If I freak out, that's why. Yeah, there it is. Hopefully Ian can deal with it. There must be some sort of wasp's nest because we haven't had one for ages. But they keep coming in.
Yeah. They're looking for one.
There's some holes in the ceiling. I think they're getting in.
Is he
Sorry,
good at
anyway.
wasp removal as well? 'Cause
Sorry,
he's good
where
at
were we?
history and things.
Yeah, did you see he's
Yeah, he's full of information. I can't retain these information and stuff like that.
No, I don't remember anything because I've just got so much stuff going on all the time. I
Mm.
only remember things that I really need to remember, which isn't
Yeah.
very much. So it just kind of filter. Oh God, you won't be able to hear it, but I can see it.
I saw something yesterday about them accepting an inquiry
Go
into
and
the
get the
grooming
vacuum
gangs.
cleaner. Sorry.
Sorry. I saw something yesterday about Keir Starmer accepting an inquiry into the grooming gangs.
Yes, that's new, isn't it? So what do you think of that? Do you think we'll get a proper, thorough investigation?
Probably not. I don't know. Something's got to give. There's
It
people
has, because the
not going
pressure's
quiet about it.
rising, isn't it? I
Yeah.
don't trust them to do a good job, though.
No. Not at all. We will see.
Sorry, can you see me looking at this wasp?
Yeah.
Very distracted. That's all I can think of because it's very angry.
Nothing in here. Might be the odd moth.
Sorry? Oh, you've had a moth invasion, haven't you?
Yes, I'm now a knitter.
Oh, God.
Not good.
No? Have you managed to sort it out then?
You just find little pockets of. They have a little. It's like a little grub in a case, and I find them sometimes. The eggs are absolutely tiny. You wouldn't find them.
Yeah.
Every moth gets.
Oh, the vacuum cleaner's on now. We'll have to wait a minute until he's got it.
Well, we're only talking about moths.
We've got it. Excellent. Oh, right, we'll have to report that to the council. Sorry about that.
They try and get in holes in your building.
Sorry.
If there's any little holes in the building, they'll try and get
There
in to
is,
nest.
because there's the brackets for the
Vents.
blinds. But I did report it to the council, and he had a look, but he obviously hasn't done anything. But we haven't had one for ages. That's the first one for like months. I think it's gone. It stopped going.
Cat
God, I'm
wants
going
to
to
be
have to
back
do
in
some
now.
editing on this, aren't I? Right, what were we talking about? Inquiry.
Well, just that there was some news, recent news yesterday, I think it was, about like sneak it out on a Sunday. They're going to do some inquiries into historical. Can't say that word on here.
Yeah, you can. Is that the cat back in?
Sorry, she's scratching to be in. Right, yeah. Brief news yesterday. I just saw it somewhere small. Sneaking in under the radar on a Sunday, we're going to do an inquiry into this historical gangs.
Yeah, I want, well, it's obvious they're really reluctant to talk about it, aren't they? So
Yes.
they're trying to do it sneakily and but it's really important in a
Yeah.
way.
It's devastating. It's really important. If you think about my experience, I'm okay. I've moved on. I've dealt with what happened to me. These people know that people know what has happened to them, and they're still refusing to do anything about it.
They're not, the very fact that they weren't acknowledged, I think that's the
Yes.
worst part of it.
Yeah.
And they're being treated really badly.
Yeah.
Unlike, that Maggie Oliver.
She's a
She's
wonderful
brilliant,
woman.
isn't she?
Yeah. But, they're called slags. I kind of knew that was the view that they had of us English women at the time. I think I understood those things at the time. Yeah, but I wasn't.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it is a different culture, and, well, English women are different to Pakistani women.
We are.
It's like that Western culture.
Thing is, though, I had nice legs at the time, but if I get my legs out these days, there's nothing sexy about them. I don't think my legs are my best feature. Put it that way. So why, do I have to be? What would I have to be covered up? And my hair, look, it's grey. It's weird. When I see somebody who's covered up, I feel like going like this.
I think, like, and it's something that I haven't really given much thought to until recently. But since I started thinking about it, I think I just don't see them because they're covered up and there's nothing to engage with. Yeah, like, you just don't acknowledge women who are covered up with just
I
that, like, eyes showing.
I have I know somebody who is Bangladeshi, and it's a married couple, and she doesn't talk to me. She makes out she can't speak English, but I think she can because she's slipped up the odd time, and she's drab. She has a face, is it? Like, I can see her face, but I don't think she's allowed to speak to me. Or, you know, I don't know, but he does, and he has all, he's all fancy and all the rest of it.
Mm.
But she's not really, I don't think she's supposed to speak, even.
Yeah, like, there's a family near us of, well, I think they're Muslims, I'm not sure. But they, you only see the men. I don't know what the women look like. I've seen them like once or twice. It's always the men that you see, but not the women.
Yeah.
And we actually do have a mosque at the bottom of our street, and they all come and park in our street on a Friday. But you never see the women, it's always the men.
No, because they don't go, do they?
Mm-hmm.
It's just men. Yeah. Which is like a real backward step when you're talking about women's rights, women's
Mm-hmm.
freedoms.
Yeah.
They've left the door open, haven't
You have? For the cat?
they?
I think Tim just went past.
Yeah.
Oh, you're still on.
Yeah, I think we might be done though. I don't think I've got
Yeah.
anything else to say, really.
Yeah. The dog wants to
Roxy always
speak.
has.
Let the dog speak.
It's all right.
Well, Annie, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so
I'll
much
see
for
you.
coming on.
I'll see you on a turf train soon.
Yeah, you will. And I think I might leave in the cat coming in and out in the wasp drama because it's funny.
Well, yeah, I do live in a zoo. I've got a menagerie.
Well, I don't. I'm at work. There shouldn't be any animals here.
No.
But anyway, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. So this is going to go out on Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
If you're free, you can come in the chat, and if you're not, I'll see you some other
Might
time.
be too cringy, that.
It is hard watching yourself.
We'll see.
Okay.
Hopefully it's okay.